Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. It is great to have you with us again. Under the weather today. I've had like the worst allergy season ever. I really have. Like, I have been just feeling like shit for the last like 2 months on and off. It's just the worst. But Dalton, hopefully you're doing better than me. You're wearing one of those that stretchy snapbacks for guys like big noggins with like us. Those things are miracles, apparently.
Yeah, the massive. Like it's the 970 line from New Era. Can't recommend them enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was out at Twins Giants on Saturday. Because I have a friend who works for the Twins, I get half off on any Twins gear at their store at the game. So picked up a new Twins hat, and we're going to be talking a little bit of Twins today. They are red hot, 8 in a row, hottest team in baseball.
Yeah, really looking good for the Minnesota Twins, and this is coming shortly after we were talking about them and just them being underwhelming to start the season. They've seemed to have turned it on over the past week or so, but we have plenty of stuff to go over today. A little bit later on in the show, again, this is Subway Series week. This is a big week in baseball for me, where the Mets and the Yankees face each other for the first time this season. Juan Soto returning to the Bronx for the first time as a Met. That series will take place in the Bronx. We'll see that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that series. So that is something to look forward to. We'll talk about that series a little bit, what we can expect. Like we said, the Minnesota Twins, they have been red hot so far the past week or so. We'll touch on that. We'll see if that's sustainable, if they can continue that surge up the AL Central. We saw a bunch of managers, I shouldn't say a bunch, but a couple of managers get fired early on in the season, that being Derek Shelton of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then as early as yesterday, Bud Black from the Colorado Rockies getting let go as well. So we'll discuss those. Rafael Devers has had a bit of an interesting 2025. We'll dip into that, see if it might be time for the Red Sox to move on. We'll see about that coming up a little bit later. I have some thoughts on that.
I hadn't considered move on as one of the possible options yet. I mean, we'll talk about it.
We'll see. We'll get there. Don't worry. But yes, plenty of stuff to go over. And then obviously later tonight, we have Dalton's Hot Corner. But first, we cater to our own fan bases because that's what we do on this show. So Yankees, Dodgers. Dalton, you're the defending champs. You get to go first. What do you have from the Dodgers today?
Well, I've got a nice sigh of relief for the Dodgers today. 10-game road trip without any off days finally ended after yesterday's game in Arizona. That was a trip that saw the Dodgers go to Atlanta and then to Miami and then to Arizona with no off days. So to come out of that 6-4, especially to finish that trip by splitting the 4-game series in Arizona, I feel pretty good about it. It's like I would have liked to sweep Miami. I don't like losing any of the 3 games to them, but take 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. That's a really solid result. All things considered, splitting the 4 games in Arizona feels relatively good. I don't know if you caught any of the Friday night game there, but possibly the craziest big game in baseball all season. Dodgers led that game 8-3, blew that lead, fell behind 11-8, scored 6 runs in the 9th to win the game 14-11, including a 3-run home run by Shohei Ohtani to take the lead in the top of the 11th. The other big thing with the Dodgers right now, they've, because the schedule, I think they're in a stretch right now where they're playing 19 games in 20 days. They've had to condense their pitching a little bit. So the bullpen is gassed. The starting pitching has been okay. But they're finding ways to win in large part because Freddie Freeman has been playing at an MVP level. And with the exception of his last start, you've had Yamamoto at a Cy Young level. There's a chance the Dodgers win both of those awards without Shohei Ohtani winning either one of them, which could be kind of fun, at least for Dodger fans. Freddie Freeman right now, I think he's batting .375. And he's second in offensive WAR, only to obviously Aaron Judge.
Right.
The most remarkable thing with Freddie Freeman right now, 35 years old, and he is producing the hardest exit velocities of his career. So he's never hit the ball harder than he's hitting it right now. So yeah, I mean it's exciting to go 6-4 when you don't have Teoscar Hernandez, you don't have Tommy Edman, you're missing a ton of pitchers, and now you get to come home to play the A's and Angels, hopefully pad things a little bit. The fact that the Dodgers are leading the division, playing good baseball with their roster looking like this tells me that as we get healthier, we should comfortably run away with things, which is always what we expected, but it's still good to see the team perform.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, the NL West is like we've said on several occasions, it's a bloodbath. So this upcoming week where you play the A's and you play the Angels, that could be a big time buffer in that department as well, to maybe create a little bit of separation between the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants and the Diamondbacks. And, maybe some more separation from the Rockies. Who knows? Maybe the Bud Black firing gets them going. I'm totally kidding. That's not going to happen. Anyway, but yes, no Dodger fan should be worried. They are in prime position. Again, a 10-game road trip with absolutely no days off. If you can finish that over 500, then you have something there. John Does Math is in the comment section. This is the first time for him in the comment section. There have been 200 Game 7s in NHL history. Exactly 25% have gone to overtime. This is a baseball show, my friend, and we care very little about hockey. This one does, however, apply. He says Cy Young never won the Cy Young, which is that actually true? I think that's actually true.
Yeah, no, the award was named after him long after he was playing.
I know.
For what it's worth, you can ignore John Does Math as you see fit. He's a good friend of mine. He actually teaches math at West Point. So pretty smart guy, but he's a little more hockey focused than baseball focused. I think he just misses my face, and so he decided to tune in and watch us here.
Well, listen, it wouldn't be the first time somebody's missed Dalton's face, right? Ivan, Colorado Avs is the only player in NHL history with the same first and last name. Okay. Well, thank you, John, for the fun NHL facts that we have on this baseball program. I genuinely appreciate that. Add a little bit of flavor to our program. Anyway, let's move to the Bronx Bombers. They have had a very interesting past week or so, and it's been a lot of ups and downs, right? So they took 2 out of 3 from the Padres. They took 2 out of 3 from the A's. I would make the argument that the Yankees probably should have taken 3 out of 3 from the Padres. But again, Devin Williams is really, really struggling this season. And like now I'm starting to kind of grow a little bit concerned with him, like genuinely concerned. It's May 12th now, and his ERA is 9.24. Like there's a real issue with Devin Williams just simply not having it. And I don't know that he has any idea how to fix it, right? I don't think that he's, losing a, I don't know. I get the impression that he's lost. But listen, not everything is negative, right? 23-17, they're first in the AL East right now, which I think is very, very solid from where we are in this season and from what we lost in the offseason, right? So I want to look at this. 7 players that play every day for the Yankees in their starting lineup are posting analytically positive above average numbers. And that I think is very positive going into May and heading into the dog days of summer. I think that that's very important when it comes to that. I think what we've gotten out of Paul Goldschmidt, I don't know how sustainable it is, but I do think that, like, we're not seeing a whole ton of power out of him, 4 homers, but the guy's hitting 350. Like, if the guy just puts the ball in play, like, okay, I'm good with that. Like, Anthony Rizzo used to not put the ball in play. Paul Goldschmidt puts the ball in play. I think there's a clear upgrade there. I think that's been proven already. I don't even need to say it. Aaron Judge is on another planet. He's not – the guy is skywalking. It's unbelievable what he's doing. Dalton, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this because I think Ben Rice might be a guy. Like, I think Ben Rice might actually be pretty good. Now, again, his numbers are not, like, jumping off the page of like he's hitting 350 and 13 homers, but I mean he's got a 937 OPS, and the guy plays every day. Like
Yeah,
something.
No, and it's pretty real with him so far. I mean, look, obviously we're dealing with limited sample size, about 150 at bats at this point. But I mean, you look at, I don't know if you've looked at his Baseball Savant page, but he's 95th, 98th percentile in things like barrel rate, exit velocity, WOBA, expected slugging percentage. He's hitting the cover off the ball consistently. The expected batting run value with him is 95th percentile. So this is a guy who's just been consistently hitting the cover off the ball. The power to the pull side with him is obviously quite impressive. But yeah, I mean, he's been excellent. Like he really has. And the Yankees needed one of their prospects to be what Ben Rice has been. We talked about that a lot going into the season. Like, how are they going to replace Juan Soto's production? And he's been a big part of how the Yankees right now have the best run differential in baseball. Like the record has been, I think most Yankee fans feel just okay. I mean, like the overall performance, 23-17, you're not jumping for joy about, but given the injuries and the guys that are going to come back and everything else, like they're heading in a really positive direction. And by the way, it's not just Ben Rice. Like Jason Dominguez is starting to fulfill that prophecy a bit too. The 3 homers the other night, obviously a big part of that. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with the Yankees, and it doesn't hurt that their division is not what we thought it might be because the Orioles are bad. And so the Yankees are in a great position to win their division. They're in a great position to get home field advantage through the American League playoffs. Obviously, it's May. We're not looking at these things that closely yet. But if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly happy too. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that again. I think I mentioned this last week too, but apparently over the offseason, Trent Grisham became Mike Trout. like I don't know what's going on with him, dude. Like that guy's he has got a 978 OPS and he's got 10 homers on the year. Now, again, like I'm not going to bank on Trent Grisham being a 300 hitter with a 950 OPS by the end of the year, but God almighty, do I like him right now. It's just remarkable. Talk about things that you didn't expect. Trent Grisham being this good at the plate.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would also not to burst your bubble, but I would also put that in the category of things that you're not expecting to continue.
Yeah, no, I don't expect that. I don't expect that. But listen, ride the high while it's here. All right, so let's give you a bit of a score update before we jump in. The Brewers right now are losing to the Guardians, so it's a 4-0 lead for Cleveland in the bottom of the 7th. Cleveland got a very good outing. I guess really not. I guess they kind of went, around the horn here. Ben Lively, Jacob Junis, and Colby Allard combining for just 3 hits given up to the Brewers today. The Tigers are beating the ever-loving hell out of the Boston Red Sox right now in Detroit. It's 12-0 at this point in the game. Tanner Houck again, 2 1/3, 11 earned on 9 hits, giving up 2 bombs against the Tigers. That is a 12-0 lead for Detroit heading into the bottom of the 5th. Cardinals up 2-1 on the Phillies. That's in Philadelphia. The Pirates and the Mets are knotted at 1 in the top of the 5th. The Braves lead the Nationals 2-1 in Atlanta. They've kind of sprung back. They're not comfortable yet, I think, from where they are. But after the start they had, Dalton, I think Atlanta, they've kind of come back a little bit.
I mean, they've come back a little bit, but losing 2 out of 3 this past weekend to Pittsburgh does not leave Atlanta feeling like the vibes are any good. I'll say that. They've still got a way to go, and obviously in that division, making up ground is not going to be easy, but they've got plenty of time to do it. One other team that you mentioned that I do think is worth touching on, the St. Louis Cardinals. We're going to talk a little bit about the Twins and what they've been doing, but the St. Louis Cardinals have been absolutely on fire also. This is a team that has won 8 in a row, including starting with a doubleheader sweep of the Mets Sunday the 4th. Now, look, That's been against the Mets for 2 games, but then it's mostly been against the Pirates and Nationals. If they can continue that hot streak in Philly, which so far so good, Cardinals, I'll give them this. They're at least decent all over the field. And if Victor Scott is going to be a star, the Cardinals could maybe be fun. Now, look, getting a wild card spot in the National League is going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
I'm not considering them a contender for that yet, but I want to give them a little bit of love with an 8-game win streak that's worth acknowledging.
It certainly is. And I think that if we were talking about them at all in this position, I think it would have been a surprise to us from where we stood on them early on in the season. And it might still end up that way. It's still early in the year, but the fact that St. Louis is playing well now is something to be looked at. Like I said, Braves right now with the 2-1 lead over the Nationals in the top of the 5th. Marlins and Cubs in Chicago are still scoreless in the top of the 3rd. Rockies and Rangers just getting started. They're in the bottom of the 1st. They're still scoreless. And the Astros and Royals right now in Houston in the top of the 1st. They are still scoreless. And then we got 3 later games tonight. The Yankees and the Seattle Mariners in Seattle. Clark Schmidt and Emerson Hancock getting the start in that game. That starts a 3-game set between the Yankees and the Mariners. The Angels and Padres in San Diego. It's Yusei Kikuchi and Michael King in that matchup. And then the Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Francisco Giants. Merrill Kelly and Justin Verlander getting the starts for them in that game. Okay, so let's start with this, Dalton. So the Minnesota Twins have been very, very good for the past, like I said, 8 or so days, 10 days. 8-2 in their last 10. They have an 8-game winning streak right now. Taking games from the Giants, from the Orioles, and then leaking into that series against the Red Sox in Boston. They've been very good. So what do we make of the Twins? This is a very winnable division in my mind. I think the Tigers are very, very good from where they stand now. The Twins right now sitting at 21-20. They're still in 4th in the AL Central. But is this kind of is this cause for maybe some hope in Minnesota based on what we thought of them in the beginning of the season?
Yes, absolutely. So the Twins started the season 7-15. Since then, they've gone 14-5, including this 8-game win streak that finished off this weekend with a sweep of the San Francisco Giants. The reasons that I am so bullish on the Twins, for the most part, are related to their pitching. If you look at what this starting staff has done, especially lately, Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez have been really good all season. Simeon Woods Richardson has been a better than average starting pitcher for them. And this is a guy that's allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. Bailey Ober, over his last 5 starts, he's allowed 1 earned run exactly in his last 4 starts. And then you look at Chris Paddock, was horrible. Like, I'm talking terrible the first couple starts of the season. Well, look at what he's done since. He's allowed 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1. Kept them in all these games, and sure enough, they're starting to win some ball games because the back end of that rotation is rounded out and all pitching well. We know what Joe Ryan is. We know what Pablo Lopez is. We didn't know we were going to get this from the rest of that staff. And then the bullpen for the Twins has been maybe the best in baseball or close to it. Yohan Duran is not getting talked about very much, but this guy's posting a 0.93 ERA. He's been pretty much perfect out of the closer role for them. And Griffin Jacks, I know the ERA is close to 6, but the FIP is under 3. Danny Colum has been really good from the left side. And then guys like Cole Sands, Louis Varland, Justin Topa, Brock Stewart, they're getting a lot of zeros. At one point this weekend, they had thrown 19 consecutive scoreless innings out of that bullpen. So what's encouraging for the Twins is I think the pitching is sustainable. The stuff is there. These are all proven major leaguers. And I think that as long as the pitching stays healthy, which usually pitching does once you get through April, the pitching is going to stay. And they're doing this right now despite Carlos Correa not hitting. Royce Lewis just came back this last week, hasn't really started hitting. So, I think that there's actually room for this team to get better than they are right now.
Yeah.
This off day for them comes at a huge time, obviously, because Yohan Duran pitched the last 4 days. Griffin Jacks pitched the last 4 days. But now they go on the road to Baltimore, a team they just swept, a team that's not playing good baseball. I wouldn't be surprised if they take 2 out of 3 there and set up what should be a really fun series this weekend in Milwaukee. But you and I have talked about this division a lot. It's a lot better than we thought as a whole, but it's still incredibly winnable. These are really young teams they're chasing, and the Twins are more talented in most cases than these teams. So I'm excited about it. You know, as somebody who lives in the Twin Cities, Saturday's game was a ton of fun. Sunday's game, they came back and walked it off. They're playing with a little bit of a different mojo. Rocco Baldelli seemingly had a fire lit under his ass, which you and I talked about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Saw him get run from the game Saturday, throw his hat out onto the field. The crowd went nuts. So message seemingly received as far as the Twins are concerned, playing a lot better baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, man, I think I've not given up faith on the Twins. I think that there's first of all, I'm surprised how much we talk about the AL Central. I really am. Like, this is not a division that, you would think deserves a lot of chatter.
It's a division that's been really good, though.
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, first of all, and I don't want to go too far off here, but like the Detroit Tigers are very legit. Like, I think that's a good baseball team. I think they're a legit contender. Like, so far early in the season, I have a lot of faith in the Tigers. So, and we've talked about that plenty as well, but, yeah, the Twins pitching has been great, right? They're tied for 4th in the league in runs allowed. They're 5th in Major League Baseball in ERA. They're tied for 5th in WHIP. They're striking out nearly 9 or 10 batters a game. Like, they're getting guys out. Like, they're figuring out how to keep games pretty low scoring. I do think that this is a lineup that, like, when things are going poorly, they go very poorly, right? They have a lot of real inconsistencies in this lineup. They really do. Byron Buxton is one of the most hot and cold players in baseball, right? Royce Lewis is one of these guys where, listen, I love Royce Lewis. I really do. But, if he's going to be on, like, you need him to stay on the field. So I am not ruling out the Twins by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that there's going to come a point in the season where, like, their pitching is going to regress back towards the mean a little bit, and they're going to need their offense to kind of carry some load over the summer. And you know what I mean? Like I think it's a steeper hill to climb than something that we can just say, oh yeah, they're going to be fine.
Well, so I guess the counterpoint I would make to that is I think as much as their pitching will regress to the mean a bit, I think their hitting will regress to a positive mean a bit too. Like, Byron Buxton's been great. Byron Buxton has been consistently great when healthy over the years, by the way. I mean, he feels streaky, but he feels streaky because he's either on the field and producing at a high level or he's hurt, and he's been hurt a lot. Mm-hmm. But when he's been healthy, he's been excellent. The guys that I'm like, because like I think Chris Paddock and Bailey Ober come down to earth, probably, right? But I also think Carlos Correa is still like a top 10 shortstop in baseball, and he hasn't played anything close to that, right? Like, yeah. I still think Royce Lewis is a high end bat at third that has, like, I think he has 2 hits since he came back. Mm-hmm. Like, those 2 guys are going to get better too. And so, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think, and again, the big question with any team, especially with the Twins, is can they stay healthy? If they do, I think that they're live to win the division. I also like the other thing too, though, is like when you look around the American League, by record, the 3 best teams in the league are all in the AL Central. Like, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. So
remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, the Twins are in 4th place right now. They've won 8 in a row to get over 500, and they're in 4th place.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the crazy part about this division too, is that's what I'm saying. Like, steep hill to climb. Like, I don't know that we expected this, right? Because we look, I think you and I both expected beginning of the season that the Guardians were going to get worse, right? Yeah. Guardians were not going to make another ALCS run. They just weren't. Okay. The Royals and the Tigers, we certainly didn't expect Detroit to be this good. And we both kind of felt that, excuse me, Detroit and Kansas City were 2 of these teams that, like, they could pop a little bit, but they're young, they're inexperienced, they've got, a bunch of guys that aren't proven. Like, things could go just about average for them, and that could just be the end of it. And we both said, listen, there's no excuses for why the Twins shouldn't win this division. They're clearly the most talented team in the division. They have been for the past several years, but for some reason they can't pick it up. So I do think that this is a steeper hill to climb. I agree with you. I think that you're going to see more production later on in the year from Correa. I think you're going to see more production on the production from Royce Lewis later on in the year. If Buxton is healthy, I do expect him to start to continue producing. That's all I think a given. But the Tigers are good, dude. I don't know, man. The Tigers are good. The Royals are good. You know, I'm still a little iffy. The Guardians might still be ass. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I feel you, dude. I really do. I might be falling a little bit more on the skeptical side on Minnesota, especially from where they stand today, even with the 8-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. I mean, I want to believe in the Twins too. That's part of it. You know, I want the games at Target Field to be fun this summer. But all right, let's change gears and let's talk about a really bad team, Mike. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm good with that. By the way, before we move on real quick, he's just been throwing out these fun facts all day. It's adding an element. I like it. The Twins mascot is TC Bear. Can you guess what the TC stand for? And he says, Twin Cities, of course.
That checks out.
Byron Buxton attended Appling County High School in Baxley, Georgia. See, look at this. The Guardians won the 1948 World Series. We're just throwing out fun facts here. John does math. Appreciate it. It's great.
He does do math. I can confirm that.
All right, so let's move on. The Colorado Rockies are a very bad baseball team, Dalton. They are very, very, very bad. They're 7-33 so far this year. They could very well break the White Sox record for worst team in Major League history. We could see that coming this season. They are 19 and a half games back of first place, and it is May 12th. And, that's really something else. But the main point here is that they fired their manager, Bud Black. Bud Black as the Colorado Rockies manager. Let me just pull it up right now because I'm unprepared and unprofessional. Bud Black as a manager, not the player, manager, had a 544 and 690 record as the manager of the Colorado Rockies in 9 seasons. So we also saw Derek Shelton getting fired by the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates are also in last place. They're 14-27, 9 games back of first place in the NL Central. Look, man, the way that you phrased this question to me, I think is a good way to approach this. Because I think it brings up a bunch of different things. If you're like a guy who wants to be a manager in the big leagues, why would you have any interest in managing the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Colorado Rockies? That's the way you phrase that question to me. So what do we make of this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, to answer that question directly, the only answer I can really come up with is if you're a really young guy that wants to get into managing at the major league level and just wants to get your feet wet and be in a big league clubhouse and experience it so that later on down the line, after you get inevitably fired there, you maybe have some experience you can lean on at some point in the future. That's the only real reasoning I can come up with. Because, look, Bud Black, by all accounts, is a very intelligent baseball person. He's very respected around the game. I wanted the Dodgers to hire him way back when we hired Dave Roberts.
Yeah.
Because I feel really strongly about Bud Black and how well respected he is around baseball.
Yeah.
Just like Derek Shelton in Pittsburgh, neither one of them were set up with rosters that are designed to win games. Now, the Pirates have had some young talent come up, and there's reason to believe that maybe things are looking up for them. Things are not looking up for them, though, if they don't spend the money needed to support the guys they're calling up, which I'm not confident that they will. And the same thing's true with Colorado, except Colorado right now doesn't have the exciting young talent either. Part of what strikes me with the Rockies is if you were to go back and look at the 2018 Colorado Rockies pitching staff, okay, which I'm pulling up now, and you were to say, I wonder who their biggest contributors were on the mound then. Well, their ace was Kyle Freeland, who is still a pitcher for them now.
Yep.
And then Herman Marquez, and then you also had Antonio Sensatella. So you have 60% of the same rotation in 2018 that you do in 2025. Not only am I very confident that that's not true of any other team in baseball, I'm also pretty confident that that's not a good thing if you're the Rockies, right? Like, if you told me that that was true of the St. Louis Cardinals, or that was true of the Dodgers or the Yankees or some other team, right? You'd be like, wow, they've clearly built something that's sustainable on the pitching side.
Right, yeah.
In Colorado's case, it's simply a matter of laziness, stubbornness, not being willing to change anything, not wanting to go outside the organization for anything, right? I mean, think about it this way, right? Earlier this year, they fire their hitting coach. What do? They bring in Clint Hurdle. Clint Hurdle, a guy who's a fossil at this point, been out of the game for a while. Again, well-respected baseball man, but this is Colorado just being like, let's just bring in a Rockies guy. Even the manager, Warren Schaefer, who's taken over for Bud Black on an interim basis, is a 40-year-old guy who's just been in the Rockies organization forever. That's why nobody's heard of him, because he's just been in their organization forever. They are not willing to look outside the organization for answers when it's blatantly obvious that the answers are not currently within the organization.
Yep.
They hire way fewer analytical staff than every other team. And the shocking thing about Colorado, Mike, is, I've watched, I say this every week. I watch a lot of different podcasts and listen to different stuff. One thing that you hear consistently about this team is how well they treat their people. Right. And you wouldn't, organizations of their ilk, you usually don't expect that from. Like, the Angels do not have that reputation.
Right.
But the Rockies have the reputation of they treat their players well, they treat their staff well, people like working there. They just don't care about winning. And so if you're a manager, if you want to go to a place where you're not going to get fired for a few years, they're not really going to care if you win or lose, the vibes are good, go to Colorado, I guess. But in both of these cases, they're not setting these people up to succeed, and they don't succeed. I don't know. The whole thing is frustrating as a baseball fan. Because you'll hear nonstop about how teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees are the problem. No, it's these organizations that are a problem in baseball.
Well, yeah, I think that there's real truth to that. The Rockies are. It astonishes me how poorly they develop talent. Right, because think about it this way. Right, they had a roster at one point that should have won games when it was Charlie Blackmon and Chris Bryant, and when they had a young Ryan McMahon and they had a young Brendan Rodgers, right? They had players that, it made sense. Okay, you could see them winning 80 games, winning 82 games at some point, but there's just been no progression from them at all in any of those departments. Like you said, it is if you took what their roster looked like you said, about 6 or 7 years ago, copied and pasted it to today, you'd probably pass the test. It's remarkable at how alike the roster is. I think Bud Black was put in a position to fail. I agree with you. I think he's a good baseball guy. I do not think that he was necessarily the problem in Colorado. I understand them wanting to, change the face and whatever. I get it, but here's my thing. I don't know that anybody wants to play there. I don't know that they're you can't get a free agent pitcher there if you tried. You can't, right? Your ERA is going to inflate to 4.5 just because of environment. It'll never happen, okay? And I'm not suggesting this as a big hot take. whatever. But like the Rockies should move. Like I'm not even kidding. Like if the best chance for the Rockies to win baseball games, in my mind, honest to God, is for them to move out of Colorado, right? It doesn't make like in football, you don't have this problem. So the Broncos can succeed in Colorado. The Denver Nuggets can succeed in Colorado. The Colorado Avalanche can succeed in Colorado, right? When you have projectile objects flying through the air where the environment is actually a factor, like Colorado is just a shit baseball place. It just is. It's a completely unfair environment. Now, like I said, I'm not expecting that to change or anything, for them all of a sudden to change the location, change the branding because it no longer makes sense. Like, I'm not expecting all of that. But like the problems within this organization, I think, are so deeply rooted that I think it goes beyond their organizational failure to develop talent and maybe their care of winning. It literally goes back to their geographical location that hinders them from having success, especially in an environment now where they're in an NL West where all the other 4 teams in that division are all stacked, with maybe the exception of the Giants. Like the Giants just play good. But I guess we lost Dalton. I'll see if I can get him back in here. But again, like I genuinely believe that we're, I don't know. To me, it's hilarious because, I don't think the Rockies can succeed in baseball unless they they have to load up on offense and just simply outscore everybody. They do. They have to simply outscore everybody. So, again, we'll see if they can eventually turn it around. But I want to see if we can get Dalton back in here. I guess he lagged out of here. John does math. Can the Rockies succeed in hockey, though? Maybe they can. Maybe they can. If they're physical enough, I think they might be able to. Let's see if I can get Dalton back in here real quick. I will re-invite him into the stream. This is what we do here, folks. We just kind of we just kind of fly, it's just vibes at this point. It really is. It's just vibes. But yeah, I don't know, man. I am. Here we go. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back on my phone for the time being. I don't know what's going on with my computer, but I'm here.
But I was done, Dalton. I was done ranting about how the Rockies are plagued by geography. It just goes. I think it's deeply rooted. I think they have they have a very they have the steepest hill to climb, I think, to find success. I really do.
So I think you're right. Like as a general rule, that they have a really steep hill to find success. I don't like how close this is to my face, but I also think that that team's never going to move. Right, Major League Baseball needs to have a foothold in that part of the country.
Yeah, they're never going to move. I
do think that there's a pathway to succeed there. And to me, the way you do it is you have to be the maximum Colorado Rockies,
right,
because as much as pitchers wouldn't want to play there, if hitters knew that this was a team that wanted to invest in success, I don't think you would have that much of a problem signing offensive talent.
Right.
And so you could become this awesome offensive team. And once you're an awesome offensive team, you don't have to be able to go sign the Blake Snells of the world and the Corbin Burnses of the world. But if you're a good enough offensive team that people are confident you can contend, I think you'd be able to go out and get the Griffin Cannings, the Tyler Andersons of the world, right? Guys like that are that second tier down of pitcher in baseball. I do think that they could access if those guys were confident that the Rockies were trying to win. But right now I'm going to go to this place where I'm going to give up runs because I'm pitching at Coors, and we're not going to be supported with any offense. So it's just going to be a miserable situation all around.
Right. Well, that's what I said before you left, was because the only way they have success is if they bludgeon teams offensively. That needs to be the goal. I would go as far to say every first round pick that they have in the draft, needs to be a positional player, at least, for some sense of a course of time, because you need legitimate talent. You need like hitters up and down that lineup, because the pitching automatically hurts you. It automatically hurts you, right? So I agree with you on that. I think that there's, but I do think, like I said, there's a steep hill to climb in Colorado. Pittsburgh, I think, I don't even know what to do with that, dude. Like, I really don't. Like, they brought Andrew McCutchen back for another. Like, Andrew McCutchen's their cleanup hitter at this point, dude. Like, I don't know. What do we do? Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is prominent in their lineup. Like, what? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if Derek Shelton was a good manager or not, but, that's the point. We don't know.
Yeah, with Pittsburgh, to me, it's really as simple as, like, they don't, like, to some extent, the same problem as Colorado, just in a different way. Pittsburgh will make changes. Like, they'll fire managers, they'll change things, they'll sign guys. Like the personnel changes in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But the desire to win doesn't suddenly show up in Pittsburgh. Whereas in Colorado, it's both. It's like, not only do we not care about winning, but we're never going to fire or replace anybody because we just want to have a big, happy family here. And, hey, you know what? They treat people well. I'll give them that, right? I don't think the same thing can be said about the Pirates as far as, like, their reputation organizationally. Like, people who are in that Rockies sphere are like, it's good to be a Rocky, which is cool. Like, there's something to be said for that. But it doesn't help you win games. And in this division, it could get really, really bad this year. By the way, Mike, one thing that I wanted to get to before I got cut off rudely by I don't really know what, is the Rockies' upcoming schedule. Okay. And I'm pulling this up again because I had it up and then everything on my computer kind of crapped out. But give me one moment because you've got to hear it. My issue with this decision from their perspective is they clearly do not want Warren Schaefer to succeed.
Yeah.
They're not interested in him succeeding. Listen to this. They go at Texas, which is where they are now. Okay. And then they go to Arizona.
Okay.
Then they host Philly. Then they host the Yankees.
Oh my God.
Then they go to the Cubs. And then they go to the Mets.
Oh my God.
And then they get Miami, but then after Miami, they get the Mets again, and then they get the Giants, and then they get the Braves.
Yeah.
And then they get Arizona, and then they get the Dodgers, and then they get Milwaukee, and then they get Houston.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So that is a very tough schedule.
It's brutal.
When you're the Rockies, I think every opponent is the Dodgers. like it makes every opponent look really, really good. But yes, that is a brutal schedule. It's a brutal schedule.
They're basically like, okay, so they're what, 7-33 going into that.
Yeah.
And I think they were 0-0 last I saw against Texas. But like, they're 7-33 now. There's a real chance this team goes into the All-Star break like 15-65.
Oh yeah.
This could get like, this is going to be a black eye on baseball if it keeps going the way it's going.
Yeah, so the Rockies are winning right now. It is 1-0 in the top of the third right now. Early score update because we had to get that in there. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. It could be quite terrible. He's back on the old original device. All right, so let's move to Rafael Devers. So Rafael Devers has had, like I said, to open the show, he's been a very interesting character this season and in the offseason as well. So far this year, he had a really terrible start through the first 2 weeks of the season. But ever since then, he's really picked it up. He's been fantastic. 888 OPS, 7 homers, 31 RBIs for Rafael Devers. Key part of the Red Sox lineup, only 28 years old. Listen, the kid's very good. He's very good. But recently he's been kind of making some noise, and you've kind of got split reactions from a lot of people. I think the majority of people are against him when he says, there's a possibility that with Tristan Casas going down, the Red Sox might feel more comfortable with moving Rafi Devers to first and then filling third base with somebody else, whether that be they move Alex Bregman and put somebody else somewhere, whatever they want to do in that respect. But essentially moving Rafi Devers to first on a semi full-time basis. And Rafi Devers essentially said, go fuck yourself. Like, he pretty much said, I'm not doing that.
That's what was translated.
Okay. All right.
I've heard.
Let it go.
Okay. So this Devers thing, I usually hate this kind of story where it's like, okay, let's get all worked up about what should be a relatively minor story, but it's happening in a big East Coast market, so we're going to make it a national story. That's usually how this kind of story hits my ears.
Yeah.
But this one's actually really interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, Rafael Devers is an unbelievable talent. His Baseball Savant page shows that he's actually been a lot better than his numbers suggest. He's going to be really good as the season goes along, I think, from an offensive perspective at least. But a couple of things that are really interesting here. Number one, I saw a lot of chatter from Spanish-speaking people that he was, I don't want to say mistranslated, but not super well translated with that quote. And it sounds like more of what he was saying is they can't expect me to be prepared to play first base right now, which is a much more reasonable thing to say than I won't play first base ever. Now, the truth is probably somewhere in between because he's kind of doubled down on it since then. But that's one side of this. I don't know what to make of that because I speak okay Spanish, but not that well. The other sides of this to me, because to me, this is a comedy of errors on both sides. Because we have to remember a few things about the Red Sox. When they signed Rafael Devers to their huge extension, they told him that he would be their starting third baseman. Like that was part of it, is you are the third baseman of the Red Sox moving forward. And then they didn't tell him that they were pursuing Bregman, right? In the news, it was a thing. People kind of knew they were pursuing Bregman, but they didn't really share that with him. And then all of a sudden they quote unquote blindside him with the signing of Bregman. He feels a little bit hurt in some type of way about that. They ask him to DH. Look, from a defensive perspective, it's understandable. I think there's a way that this could have been communicated throughout the process that would have made it obvious to him why this needs to happen. But I do think that this is a case where Devers is having a lot of labels put on him about being this terrible teammate and this terrible guy. When I think the Red Sox need to look inward a little bit. Like Alex Cora, from things that I've heard on various things that I listen to and watch, he doesn't really want him playing first either. And for that reason, Alex Cora was like, well, I want the GM to have this conversation with him, not me. I'm not going to be the one to tell him. So it's pretty understandable if you're Devers that you're like, wait a minute, why is Craig Breslow talking to me about this? Shouldn't Cora be talking to me about this? Yeah. And it's pretty understandable for Devers to be like, well, wait a minute. Does Craig Breslow have some issue with me? Because first he told me I was going to be the third baseman of the future. Wait, actually, that wasn't Breslow. That was Kyle Bloom, right? When they signed that extension.
Right.
Now Breslow comes in and goes, hey, actually, man, you're going to DH. Oh, by the way, we're signing Alex Bregman. I know we didn't tell you we were pursuing him. Oh, hey, by the way, now we're going to ask you to play first. Well, I can kind of understand from Devers' perspective how it's like, wait, the goalposts really feel like they're moving a lot. Couple other things, too. Like, I also think that the other side of this that I think is really interesting is it sounded like Devers' teammates were irked by the way he talked about it as well, at least based on what was being said in Boston media.
Yeah.
And I think that's understandable. But I guess my main thing here is, do I think Devers could just be a good teammate and start working on playing first base? Yes. I think that's probably going to happen eventually. Either that or he'll get traded.
Yeah.
But I think the most likely scenario is that happens. But I think we also need to hold the Red Sox feet to the fire here a little bit. Like, they very clearly made certain promises to this guy, didn't share certain things that were going to happen with him. And also, for any of this to get out of the clubhouse, I kind of blame the organization. Like, And to me, it just feels like Boston's not super buttoned up. It feels like Cora and the GM are not in agreement on what should happen with Devers. Communication's not getting to him clearly. He's getting different messages from Cora and Breslow. The whole thing's kind of a mess. And the funniest part of all of it is Devers, amid all of this, goes to Kansas City and goes 7 for 12 and puts up one of the best offensive weeks anybody's had all season.
Yeah, he's so gross, dude.
Putting on display why he's worth having around as a designated hitter.
Yeah.
By the way, one more thing on this, because I know I've been ranting. It's also not Rafael Devers' fault that Boston doesn't have any other remotely major league ready guys that can play first base in the organization. Like, that's a choice the Red Sox made behind a player in Tristan Casas who's already dealt with injuries. Like, there's no reason why the Red Sox couldn't have gone out and signed a serviceable guy to be back there available behind him. That's all.
There's no reason why they still can't go out and do that.
100%.
Right. So there is something to be said there. A couple of things. I think I've always thought that Alex Cora was a dick. I've never been an Alex Cora guy. I think he carries himself like a prick. I really do. So that's the first thing. If that actually is the story of where, like, Alex Cora didn't want to be the guy to tell Devers that he's not going to be playing third, like, you're the manager. It's your job. Like,
yeah,
like,
I agree.
That out. You know what I mean? Like, figure it out, dude. Here's the thing. I will defend the Red Sox in this way. First of all, I will say that I agree with your point that I hadn't thought about before, of that the fact that this story is even out in the ether, I think deserves, like, that casts blame on the Red Sox as an organization. That should be something that's kept in-house. I'm sure that this is something that happens organizationally with a lot of teams in a lot of scenarios, but the fact that this took place out in the world now it casts a certain light on Devers that maybe shouldn't be there. I will say this. I don't think that the Red Sox had this long-term plan this off-season long plan to pursue Alex Bregman. I don't think that happened. I think Alex Bregman fell into their lap. Alex Bregman signed February 15th. I do not if he signed during the winter meetings, I would buy the fact that the Red Sox, put Rafi Devers in a tough spot because they told him he was going to be the third baseman of the future, but behind closed doors, they were looking to improve defensively in that area, and they were going to sign Alex Bregman. Even when they did sign Alex Bregman, there was talk that they were going to play him at second base instead because they didn't want to move Devers off third. So I do think that Alex Bregman signing with the Red Sox was not necessarily part of their long-term plan, and it kind of became part of their long-term plan by the time February rolled around and Bregman was still a free agent. So I think that's part of it as well. But I also kind of fall in line with, and I know that, like, in today's day and age, I am a fossil when it comes to this, and maybe I'm a bit old school and I understand all that, but I kind of feel I'm kind of coarse on this subject. I kind of feel like that if the Red Sox paid you 11 years, $300+ million, if we want you to come out of the bullpen, you got to be okay with it. Like, I just, that's how I feel about it, dude. Like, and listen, this to me feels eerily similar, and maybe I'm looking at this a bit harshly in that sense, but this feels eerily similar to when Marcus Stroman said, I'm a starter. Like, I get it, dude. Like, I know that you don't want to, I know that he's not, he shouldn't, the Red Sox shouldn't come in with this expectation that he can learn first base. But I also think that, I don't know that I buy the fact that Rafi Devers was completely blind this entire time, this entire offseason, that the possibility of him playing first base was like completely new news to him.
They haven't had him practice it ever at any point. Like, from what I understand, he has never taken a ground ball at first base.
Then they should. They should have, and that's on them. Sure.
Right. I mean, look, I think I hear you. Look, he's getting paid a ton of money. I can understand that argument. I don't think that that's a modern argument. Like, and I think you touched on that. Like,
yeah, I get that.
That's just not how things work, right? And the reality is Marcus Stroman is a replacement level starting pitcher. Rafi Devers is a top 10 hitter in the game.
Right. But that's the thing, Dalton, is he's a top 10 hitter in the game, right? When it comes to positional value, Rafael Devers is not considered a good defensive third baseman.
Right. But he already, because here's the other thing, the other quote, and this is a direct quote apparently of something that was said to Rafael Devers, was, hey, throw away your glove. You're a hitter now and a hitter only. So think about it this way, right? And I'm not totally outright defending it, right? If I'm a Red Sox fan, I'd rather hear him say, like, yeah, I'll put the work in and hopefully I can be ready to play first in a month, right? Sure, you'd rather hear him say that. I'm not saying that's not the case. But if you put yourself in Rafael Devers' shoes and you're one of the 10 to 15 best hitters in the game, you have been a huge part of what the Red Sox did to win a World Series in 2018 and have built since then. And you're kind of like the standing vet as they start to build this new young core around you.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you feel blindsided when they go and sign another third baseman because there are 29 other teams. Somebody would have signed Bregman, right? Like, I get it. Yeah, it was late, but somebody would have signed him. And I'm not saying he's right, but I can understand why he'd feel blindsided by that. I can understand why he wouldn't love being told, like, hey, man, I know you just spent your offseason continuing to work on your defense and doing this, but, like, hey, actually, we're just going to DH you. We don't need you to play third anymore. Throw away your glove. And then you get a month into the season, your teammate gets hurt, which sucks, and now they're like, hey, you know what? I know we told you that you don't have any defensive value to us.
Yeah.
Actually, go play this position you've never played before. Like, if I'm Rafael Devers, there's a small part of me that's like, no, man, I'm the best hitter in this organization. Go find somebody else to do that. Like, I'm not saying that that's a right way for him to think.
Yeah.
But it's more understandable than I think people want to admit. And people love to get caught up in he gets paid all this money. He's still a human being with pride. And you want him to be a human being with pride. And so I don't know. I kind of place blame in both directions. Like, I think there's been communication breakdowns on both sides. Like, I still think, one of two things is going to happen in my opinion. Either he's going to learn first base and he'll be starting at first base second half of June and July, maybe something like that. Or this relationship sours and he's traded by the deadline.
I think one of two, right. I think I fall in line with you in that respect, where I think the one of two things happens. And I think there's a domino effect after that, because I think either Devers gets traded, right? Like you said, the relationship between him and the organization, him and his teammates potentially sour, and he ends up getting traded. Or Rafael Devers starts playing first base, and Tristan Casas never sees that spot on the field again. Like, I think there's a real possibility that Rafael Devers, if he does end up playing first base, he will be their first baseman.
Here's a thought for you. Let's say Rafael Devers ends up playing first, settles in there nicely, becomes their first baseman of the future, and the Red Sox are in contention. Do you trade an injured Tristan Casas for some other kind of support for this year's team? Or do you wait until the offseason when he's presumably healthy going into next year and try to trade him at more value then? To me, that would depend on whether he's healthy or not.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Tristan Casas ends up the DH moving forward. I don't know.
Well, again, to me, I don't know that Tristan Casas ends up being the DH if you're going to play Devers at first over him, right? But I do think that I think it's likely that if Devers plays first, they will shop Casas in the middle of the year, right? Mm-hmm. They'll shop Casas to the deadline. They'll see where they're at. If they get something they like, they'll move him. If not, then I think they do what you said. They probably sell him off in the offseason, try to get something for a little bit more value, because I still think Tristan Casas can play a little bit. Like, yeah, I don't know that he's like, I don't think that this is like, Red Sox fans hate him. I don't really get it. I get it's injuries and maybe a little bit of inconsistency. I get all that, but like, that's the game now. Like, I don't know, but yeah, that's how I feel on the whole subject. Maybe I'm a bit archaic in that sense, but I don't know. I hate the Red Sox anyway. By the way, John does math. Rafael Devers has 7 sisters and 2 brothers. Just throwing that out there. as important
Big
information.
camel.
All right. So let's talk about the Subway Series a little bit, Dalton. So actually, let's frame it a little bit like this. So the Subway Series really isn't the only series that we have to be excited about this coming week. So obviously, I'm going to talk about the Subway Series as far as what it means for New York and the sports culture in New York, because it's going to be brutal depending on whoever wins this series. But what is something that we could look forward to this week as far as a series that maybe is not being talked about as much as what's happening later in the week?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the impulse behind this is MLB is debuting rivalry weekend
Yeah.
as a thing, right? And so you're seeing a lot of these. Every team in the AL has their NL partner that they play two series against, right? So for the Dodgers, it's the Angels. For the Yankees, it's the Mets, and so on. And so that's what makes this weekend a bit intriguing and a bit fun, is that you get a whole bunch of different matchups of that ilk. My thought was, obviously, if we each share which one we're most excited for, I know that we're going to talk Subway Series. And then I've got another one that is maybe flying a little bit under the radar that I'd like to talk about as well.
Yeah. So let's begin in the Bronx, because I think that this is I think all hell is going to break loose in New York, regardless of what happens in this series. A 3-game series, right? Tyler McGill, Carlos Rodon on Friday, and then the 2 starters for Saturday and Sunday haven't been announced yet. It's still Monday, but I'd imagine it's going to be Clark Schmidt and I don't know, Ryan Yarbrough or something like that. So we'll see about that. But here's a question for you. How, is Juan Soto going to get Red Sox level booed at Yankee Stadium?
Yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, look, Juan Soto played well for the Yankees, but Juan Soto left on purpose. Like, he chose to leave. He's going to hear it. Of course he's going to hear it.
On purpose. I love that.
Yeah, I mean,
he left the Yankees on purpose.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he got traded away.
No,
it's
right.
not like the Yankees weren't interested in bringing him back.
Yeah.
No, he made a conscious decision to say, nope, I'm going across town to Queens. So, yeah, of course he's going to hear it. I mean, look, I think the series is really interesting from a baseball perspective. Like, I think it's going to be very much like a playoff environment at Yankee Stadium.
Every game's going to be sold out.
Yeah, the games, it'll be a really fun environment. It's a little bit unfortunate that, we're not seeing Garrett Cole, right? We're not necessarily seeing the top of these rotations and what they might be. Like, Sean Manaea is still not healthy, but I think it'll be an interesting look at where these teams are now. The Mets have kind of cooled off a little bit after their hot start. But yeah, I mean, look, it's just going to be fun baseball.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me about the Mets is that the Mets as a team have cooled off while Juan Soto has gotten hot, right? Yeah. Juan Soto has kind of picked it up in the last week or so. And in the last week or so, the Mets have kind of played fairly average baseball. I still think the Mets are a good team. But I've said this from the very beginning. The Mets are going to be truly tested, I think, in the Bronx against the Yankees, because I think the Yankees have one of the best lineups in the sport. They're hitting the cover off the baseball, generally speaking. And I think the Mets pitching is very, as good as it's been. That is, to me, a pitching staff that is begging to teeter off the deep end. I am ready to see Clay Holmes just lose it for a month. Right. I'm ready to see. And again, I'm not saying it because the Mets make me want to vomit, but Clay Holmes, I think is due for a setback. I think the same thing about Griffin Canning. I think the same thing about Tyler McGill. These are not top tier starters, but they're getting top tier production. So, and I think the Yankees could expose that this weekend. I think it's 2 out of 3 Yankees over the Mets this weekend. And fuck the Mets. That's all I'll say about that. All right, Dalton, your turn.
I mean, I definitely agree on fuck the Mets. I mean, my thing with the Mets is from a schedule perspective, like they really haven't had it too tough yet.
No.
This is a team that has already played 2 series against the Marlins. They've played the A's. They've played 8 games with St. Louis, or no, 7 games with St. Louis already. They've played Washington 4 times. Like they haven't seen the class of the league much, right? Like they haven't played the Dodgers, they haven't played they haven't played the Yankees, they haven't played the Padres, right? So I think it'll be an interesting test for the Mets. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Clay Holmes is going to pitch in that series. It looks like it's going to be McGill, Canning, and Peterson. I wish Clay Holmes was pitching in that series because that would be really fascinating.
That would be fun. It would be.
As far as the other series that I'm excited for with that weekend, Seattle going down to San Diego. Like this isn't a rivalry in the classic sense of the word, but these teams have been partnered in this way for quite a while. The series has a funny nickname, and I don't remember what it is, but I want to just take a second to talk about the Mariners. They're 22-17, which is not earth-shattering, but it's got them on top of their division. And the exciting thing for Seattle is they're 5th in baseball in home runs, 9th in slugging, 11th in OPS. So, like, this is clearly all of a sudden an above-average offensive team, and we know what the pitching is. Like, so Seattle might be really good. And to me, I mean, a lot of these rivalry weekend matchups, unfortunately, like, you got Dodgers, Angels, kind of a stinker, right? Like, this one's pretty interesting because Seattle's been really good, and their offense plays a lot better on the road. That could end up being a really exciting offensive series between Seattle and San Diego, especially when I look at the pitching matchups, because it's not, like you're not seeing George Kirby, right? You're not seeing, why am I forgetting? Oh, Logan Gilbert. Couldn't remember his name for reasons unknown. Like you're not seeing Seattle's aces in this series. So I think that makes it fun. And I think if Seattle can go down to San Diego with, with Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock, and Logan Evans on the mound, if they can go down there and take 2 out of 3 with those guys, this is a legit ball club. Like I'm pretty bought in at that point. So I don't know. I'm really excited to watch that series. Also, Padres going back to Stephen Kolek on Friday night. Kolek coming off a complete game shutout at Coors Field. First player to do that since Clayton Kershaw did it 12 years ago, I think it was, at Coors Field. Granted, he was supported by 21 runs in that game, but very interesting young starting pitching matchup Friday. And then you get Nick Pivetta, you get Emerson Hancock. Like, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that series as well. And hopefully, Vetter Cup. Thank you, John, for reminding us what that series is called.
The Vetter Cup. I was going to bring that up as well. The Vetter Cup. 1,255-mile drive down I-5 from Seattle to San Diego.
It is a straight shot, too. You don't have to change highways the whole way.
That is – wow. Really?
Yep.
All the way – wow, that's really –
well, it's like New York to Miami on 95.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. This is a simple country when it comes to driving. The highway system is really something else. I don't know where I was going with that, but here we are. But yes, I agree with you. I think that there's real upside to that series. It's going to be really fun. The Padres are, listen, I was a little bit down on them in the offseason. Boy, have they shined it up real nice for me. I mean, really something else. First in the league in batting average, tied for 3rd in hits. OPS, they're 12th in OPS, but that's because their power numbers really haven't been too much to write home about. And their pitching has been phenomenal. They're top 5 in virtually every category: runs allowed, hits allowed, ERA, WHIP, batting average against. They don't surrender any homers. Like they've really got something going. And can the Mariners actually hit this year? It certainly looks like they can. I don't know.
I mean, Mike, if the Mariners are this offensive team, which look, Jorge Polanco's not going to finish the season with like an 1150 OPS. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
If the Mariners are the 10th best team in the league offensively, they can win a World Series that way with their pitching.
Yeah.
Especially in the AL. Like, if like, think about it this way. In the American League, all you have to do is just be kind of hot going into the postseason and have the Yankees like not be super hot, and they can represent them, and then they can go to the World Series. This is not a team I'd want. Like, if Seattle's hitting at all, I don't want to face them in a short series.
Right.
Especially as the pitching gets healthy. Hell no.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. So yeah, really interesting stuff there. All right, let's give you one more score update before we head to the hot corner. Have we had any games finish up? Yes, we did. The Cleveland Guardians took a 5-0 victory over the Milwaukee Brewers. They moved to 25-17. The Brewers fall to 20-22. Freddie Peralta giving up 4 earned in 5 1/3 in that game. We saw any homers in this game? Absolutely none. No homers in that game. Just 5-0. So the Guardians get a win there. Tigers up 14-2 on the Red Sox right now in the top of the 9th. That's in Detroit. Cardinals with a 3-2 lead over the Phillies in the bottom of the 9th right now. 1 out, nobody on. Phillies trying to come back and win that one in the 9th. The Pirates with a 2-1 lead over the Mets in Queens heading into the bottom of the 7th. The Braves right now with a 3-1 lead over the Nationals in Atlanta in the bottom of the 8th. The Cubs with a 5-0 lead over Miami in Chicago in the bottom of the 5th. Rockies holding on to that 1-0 lead in Texas against the Rangers in the top of the 5th. The Royals jumped out to a 7-0 lead over the Astros in Houston. Ryan Gusto getting shelled right now. 7 earned, 7 hits in 2 1/3. And they have moved over to Taylor Scott in that game for the Houston Astros. And like I said before, we've got 3 games later tonight. Clark Schmidt and Emerson Hancock for the Yankees and Mariners in Seattle. Arizona and the Giants with a game later tonight. Merrill Kelly and Justin Verlander on the bump for that in San Francisco. And then the Angels and Padres in San Diego, Yusei Kikuchi and Michael King. All right, Dalton, what do you have? Picks, hot corner, put some more money in our wallet.
Yeah, I got 2 picks for tonight specifically. One of them starts in about 27 minutes. Padres -1.5 over the Angels. This is about as square as it gets, but this is a pick that should do just fine. Yusei Kikuchi this season, 0-4 with a 5.19 when he pitches away from Anaheim. All of his best work has been done at home. Tonight they're on the road in an environment that's been pretty tough for opposing pitching down in San Diego. Yep. Anaheim's bullpen has the highest FIP in baseball. I think the Padres are in a great position here to score a whole bunch of runs. And on the flip side, Michael King against the Angels lineup doesn't really have to be explained. So Padres laying a 1.5 here. I doubt they win this game very close. I think we're looking at 7-2, 8-3, something in that area. Right. The other one that I like quite a bit, it depends on what the number's sitting at. But if you can still get Arizona at around that -110 pick'em range tonight in San Francisco, I'm not bought in at all to what Justin Verlander has been doing for the Giants. It's looked sloppy, and this is going to be one of the toughest lineups he's faced all season. This is an Arizona team that looked pretty good offensively most of this weekend against the Dodgers. Didn't have to travel all that far, whereas the Giants are coming off a 3-game series in Minnesota with no off day, and they got swept in that series, but it was really their pitching got used a ton. I mean, I think Ryan Walker and Camilo Doval each pitched multiple times in that series. So I think you're dealing with a little bit of a more rested bullpen in San Diego, or excuse me, in Arizona, after they had played a blowout game Sunday that they lost. Didn't necessarily have to use all their best relievers because Burns went deep Saturday. So I give Kelly the edge over Verlander. I like Arizona's lineup a little bit better. Giants have gone cold. So if you can get Arizona, I got them at even money. If you can get them -110 tonight in San Francisco, I like the Diamondbacks there as well.
Again, we got to start keeping track of the picks, man. We do. Let's start this week. You want to start this week?
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's write this down.
Padres -1.5, Diamondbacks money line.
Padres -1.5. D-backs money line. I'm writing it down now.
I got the Padres. Actually got them both at even money for what it's worth, but I think. Let's see, Padres -1.5 available at even money now, and the other one, Arizona, available -118. What's the best line around? Yeah, -118 is the best you can get there. I'd still play it at that number.
Yeah. John does math. Closing out the show today. Mike Guido equals Dougie Kim. #anagram. Is that supposed to mean something to me? I don't know what that means.
Well, what he's saying is if you take the same letters and Mike Guido and you make another name out of it. I don't know why. I don't know
okay.
That, but
I can appreciate that. And then he says, if only you had a math guy to track the picks.
Hey, John, if you want to track the picks, go for it, man.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Keep us informed here. And then he gives us a little heart emoji with that. Love that. He's been providing us with some pretty good side content the entire time. I can appreciate that. All right. That does it for us. That's Dalton Brown. I'm Mike Guido. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast. You can catch us every Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern, here exclusively on the Grid Network. We will see you next week.